Organizations today must maintain awareness of many kinds of disruptive events and, most importantly, understand how those events impact their facilities and employees. A business resilience analyst can use an application like this to take inventory of their assets and quickly visualize what's happening in the world. At first glance, the facilities display on the map according to their current operating status. Each facility contains information about the operational capacity, any known assessed risks, employee counts, and contact information for the facility administrator. This information serves as a backdrop to additional internal and external feeds related to a variety of threats, such as weather watches and warnings, wildfires, and earthquakes. The ArcGIS Online ecosystem connects organizations to authoritative content, allowing them to add additional relevant information such as COVID-19 case counts, for example. Combining views from separate streams helps to tell a much more personalized story of where the impacts may be most greatly felt by this organization. Upon identifying a potential issue, the analyst can quickly solicit feedback from facility administrators, allowing for quick, on-the-ground validation of impacts. The analyst can change facility statuses, providing immediate feedback to the organization. The ArcGIS platform enables organizations to maintain awareness of multiple streams of disruptive events, validate impacts on the ground, and enforce their business continuity strategy.
During natural disasters and other emergency situations like the current COVID-19 pandemic, organizations need the ability to understand the status of their personnel. How many are working from their normal location, home, or another offsite location? In addition, organizations need the ability to understand how many are absent, presenting with symptoms, or living with an individual who has symptoms. By providing staff with a form that they can regularly complete, organizations are able to rapidly understand the current working status, location, and whether or not personnel are working with others today. In addition, an organization has the ability to understand whether an employee may be presenting symptoms of COVID-19, as well as whether they're living in a household with any members who are experiencing symptoms. As forms are submitted, we're able to track this information in real time. We can look at the history of any of the values we're tracking, including the impact to work location and the presentation of symptoms. We can track these metrics for an individual facility, as well as drill in more detail to individual personnel. And just like an organization needs the ability to track the impacts to their personnel, equally important are dashboards that present the status of facilities. In order to capture this information, we're able to leverage configurable forms that an administrator could use to quickly update the work status. We can indicate that the Baton Rouge facility has been closed, as well as how many staff are still reporting into the office, working remotely, or absent. We can collect additional information about this facility, such as when it is scheduled to reopen, if it is scheduled to do so, and whether or not there are any government restrictions in place that are impacting the facility. And just like we were able to do with the personnel status dashboard, an organization is able to view all of this information as historic tracks through time and understand at a location level what the impact, for example, to the Houston office might be, presenting key information that is relevant as we begin to consider how to continue to operate during this event and how we move on as the situation returns to normal.
Retailers are expressing the need to understand market stability and how they will reopen. Using the Smart Reopening Dashboard, we can view spatial and visual analysis of several key metrics, including the ability to understand the landscape of the pandemic in real time through the state cases per million list, a chart showing cumulative positive cases in the last 30 days, and a chart showing new cases in the last 30 days. In addition, being able to understand the impact that state emergencies, school closures, and non-essential retail bans have on our store footprint is essential. Clicking the bars in our chart gives us a spatial snapshot of when restrictions will be lifted. Let's now look at a possible scenario in Florida to understand our reopening strategy in greater granularity. Using the state list on the left, we can easily zoom in to an area of interest. We can now change the list over to the store view. We see additional information about each store, like staff availability and store readiness. Store readiness might mean, does my store have adequate amounts of sanitizer, 6-foot decals on the ground, and other CDC recommended guidelines for public places? Let's click on the Miami store at the top to understand a little bit more about what is going on in the surrounding county. Information gathered from this infographic, like population vulnerability and case count, might change the priority reopening status of this store. Through the lens of spatial and visual analysis, an organization can now make more informed decisions around reopening of their store footprint.
Knowing which areas will be prioritized to begin opening, we need to also ensure that our supply network is not at risk and flowing to fulfill demand. An organization can visualize their supply network, looking at all facilities or breaking it down into tiers such as plants, Tier 1 suppliers, or sub-suppliers like Tier 2 locations. We may also want to see distribution centers, typical service areas, or retail locations for more context. For better awareness, we may also turn on important content like weather information or COVID-19 cases from Johns Hopkins University. Knowing our focus area is in Florida, we can zoom into that area and quickly assess potential supply network impacts. We can investigate this information to identify intersecting locations and download those to a CSV for later use. Looking more closely at potential disruptions from suppliers in our network, we may want to look at how the network links together. With some spatial and link-based analysis, we can understand how the network is connected. Then, we can identify major nodes that could have great impacts if they were limited in fulfillment capacity or shut down. In our current case, we want to identify the connections of interest in our focus area of Florida. We can use the information downloaded earlier in the CSVs to create a summary table of intersecting locations. In the summary table, we can also understand current inventory levels and typical production capacity to help us focus on a specific node. Focusing on Plant 7, we can filter the map and charts on the page from the list of plant locations. This shows us the suppliers it's sourcing raw material or components from, as well as allowing us to understand its typical product production breakdowns by categories to better inform our mitigation planning strategy. With decision support tools like these, we can visualize our network, gain awareness of potential impacts, and mitigate disruptions to our supply network.